Hi, everybody. My name is Sherry Mayberry, and I'm with GWiz Education. And you've got some great people on here to share some ideas with you today as we talk about GWiz and enhancing family child care. So we look forward to some questions and some interactive discussions. And I'm going to let each person kind of introduce themselves, and we're going to start with Beth Smith.
Good
Oh,
afternoon.
real quick. Beth, I'm
Yes.
sorry. So quick. I got too quick. In the top right-hand corner, you're going to see kind of a box and you'll see the term question. If you have a question while somebody's talking and you want to ask that, you can type it in that question box and we can see it, or you can raise your hand and when we get ready, unmute yourself and ask the question. So there's two different ways to communicate. But just wanted to do some housekeeping there. We'll get started and turn it over to Beth.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Beth Smith. I'm one of the partners with GWiz. We're very excited to have you with us this afternoon. This is a first for us to do this roundtable discussion. We have some exciting people on the line with us. Sadly, we have one of them that could not be here today due to a family emergency, but she shared her feedback anyway. So I will be stepping into her shoes to share what she has to say as we answer the questions for the webinar. But first, we want to introduce our panelists that are on here today. We have two very exciting people. So Janine, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? And then Lori, you can introduce yourself after Janine.
Thank you. I'm actually excited that you said I was an exciting person. So thank you for inviting me today. My name is Janine Pagano. I'm from the state of Pennsylvania. I am the Family Child Care Coordinator for the PA Key. And for those of you who don't know, the PA Key is under the Office of Child Development and Early Learning, which is OCDEL. So I make sure that all of our home-based child care providers and our early learning resource centers receive information and supports as it relates to family child care locally, statewide, and nationally.
Thank you, Janine. It's nice to have you here, and you are an exciting person. All right, Lori.
Hi there. I was thinking the same thing, Janine. I don't know that anybody's ever referred to me as exciting, but I'm excited to be here. So I am Lori Semino. I am the director of Step Up to Quality in Nebraska. And Step Up to Quality is our quality rating and improvement system. So I'm thrilled to be here. We've been working with GWiz for several years. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. So
Thanks, Lori. All right, Janine, I'm going to throw the first question at you. So for those of you on the call, what we are going to do is our panelists have 3 questions that I've given them ahead of time to answer. And they're going to answer these 3 questions. Again, I'm going to step in for our third panelist, Dazane, who's not here today, and read what she has to say. And then after we do that, we're going to open it up for questions and anything you want to talk about. So during the course of these questions, if you have thoughts, jot them down, or if you want to send them in the question box to Sherry, we'll read them out after our panelists answer the question. So the first question is, what is the biggest challenge family child care providers in your state face in 2025? So Janine?
Oh, 2025. Well, so we have several, but I'll focus it down to one. So I think with 2025, I think one of the biggest challenges is, for home-based providers, we have at this point a lot of our providers across the state are retiring. So we're really trying to build up the new provider population and making sure that they have support. But I think the biggest challenge for those who are already in business is making sure that they are having a sustainable living wage. I think that's one of the biggest, seeing themselves as a business, making sure that they are receiving a paycheck, right? A lot of them don't pay themselves, and making sure that it's, something that they can live on. In addition, looking at, how can we have a living wage and save for retirement? Because we have several who are ready for retirement but can't afford retirement. So right now, I think it's a lot around the business portion and making sure that they are doing the budgets and they are doing the business end and being able to sustain themselves and seeing themselves as a professional. So I think that's, in 2025, I think that's kind of where we are right now with our home-based providers.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing, Janine. If any of you on the call agree with that, give a thumbs up or a yes in the box. I bet that you will probably agree with that, because I know we hear that on our end quite a bit. All right, Lori, how about you? What is the biggest challenge family child care providers face in Nebraska in 2025?
Again, I think it is hard to narrow it down. This work is important and stressful, and so many hats when you're a family child care provider, and I had been at one point, and you're doing it all. So, one of the things as I was thinking about this question is, here in Nebraska, we are mostly a rural state. We have, our larger populations in a couple of cities, Omaha and Lincoln, and then the remainder of the state really is very rural. And so we face in Nebraska, number one, not enough family child care providers. And year after year, unfortunately, we have seen family child care kind of, diminish. And in Nebraska, one of the issues that primarily parents face is that we have 9 counties where we have no high quality childcare. And so that's something that, we have really worked on. But I think in terms of the providers themselves, it's funding. After having opportunities from a lot of funds that were available because of COVID, those have all dried up and kind of gone away. And, it's still very expensive to provide high quality programming in your family childcare. So, a lot of those things are not necessarily new in 2025, but they continue to be things that I think family childcare struggle with, as do we. And again, when you're not able to share the burden of all that needs to be done and the training that is required, it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job.
Yes.
Because you're providing, you're doing the work and running the business Monday through Friday, and then Saturday you are in many cases doing your either required or additional training, and then on Sunday, you're doing, maybe the administrative kinds of things, like, hopefully you're able to look at a budget and make some of those decisions. So I don't know that we can limit this to 2025, but those are a lot of the challenges. So we are trying really hard to support our family child care providers in Nebraska so that they remain open and that parents have the options.
Wow. Well, thanks so much, Lori. Lori, any feedback from our staff, or not our staff, our participants? Give a thumbs up or a yes if you have similar experiences in your neck of the woods. And this response is from Dejanay, who is she's one of the leaders with Go FCC in Maryland. That is a family child care cohort that runs out of Family Tree, Maryland, and Family Tree in Maryland. And she says, one of the biggest challenges we're seeing in Maryland right now is burnout and retention. A lot of family child care providers are doing it all, just what Lori said: educator, administrator, cook, cleaner, and they're exhausted. The expectations are growing, but the support doesn't always match that growth. Licensing requirements, paperwork, behavioral support needs, and mental health concerns for both providers and children are at an all-time high. And on top of that, many are struggling to attract and retain families due to changing work schedules, more child care center competition, and the rising cost of living. So they're near Baltimore, so that's a very different situation than where Lori is, and she's got the rural issue in Nebraska. They have the opposite of that in Baltimore. So it's very interesting to see there's some commonalities in what all three of our panelists have said, and yet there's some differences too. So excellent. All right, question number 2 coming to Janine. What type of things is your state doing to increase the quality of family child care?
So like Lori, our state also has a QRIS system. So our state is divided into 19 regions, areas, and that way the providers can receive localized supports through other organizations. And we're very fortunate that each of those 19 have quality specialists, quality coaches to work with them through the standards to help provide supports. We also have our Pennsylvania Key, which we work with several, 3 professional development organizations, colleges that provide provide our CDAs as I teach, and then the PD registry posts trainings for our providers. So we make sure that there are trainings that we need, whether it's through DHS, through the quality, or just because of professional development, that there's a variety of trainings out there to support them through this process. So they have coaching, they've got trainings available, they have supports if they want to go through higher ed. And then through the early learning resource centers, which is those 19 areas, they also have, houses their subsidy. So they're able to, receive their subsidy payments in kind of one location. So it's very convenient. Any of our providers need any resources, they go to the early learning resource center. And that's where they receive, the supports that they need. And then, of course, I'm there. If they can't find what they need, whether it's specific training and those types of things, then I go on the lookout and help find those supports for them. We're very fortunate this year, the state of Pennsylvania, we are a recipient of the Homegrown Building Comprehensive Network for Family Child Cares. So we do have a 2-year grant to help support our home-based child care providers through, through trainings, focusing on their well-being. That is our main focus, is, making sure they have social connections with each other and with the system, as well as support for their well-being. So right now, I think across the state, we do have really good services. It's just making sure that everybody is aware of those services, that they're out there, that they're connected to them. And I think connected to each other is the biggest thing. Making sure they have someone in their system that they could pick up the phone and call and ask questions.
Excellent. That's all so important, and yet it takes so much. It's like you said, it's so much coordination and planning, and the biggest thing is letting them know that it's there. That can be a challenge in and of itself, just letting them know what's out there to help them. Thanks, Janine. All right, Lori, you're up.
Okay, I'm trying to think about how I kind of share all the information that I'm thinking about. So yes, we do really encourage our family child care providers to get involved in Step Up to Quality. As I said, primarily we're a rural state, with the exception of our larger 2 cities across the state. And so we have been, extremely lucky and thrilled that about half of our participants are family child care providers in our quality rating and improvement system. And so we're really wanting, as I had said earlier, to continue to support them so that they will stay in business, because we need them so much. But we do offer similar things to what Janine was talking about. Any of our participants who are in Step Up to Quality receive coaching. That, of course, is something that is voluntary. So, they don't have to have a coach, but they absolutely can. And one of the other things that we have more recently implemented is what we call the Quality Foundations. And so that is working with the coach in a virtual situation as opposed to someone coming to their program. Both options are available to them, but this Quality Foundations option gives them an opportunity to network with other family childcare providers as they're learning more about Step Up to Quality and how our quality rating and improvement system works. We often joke here in Nebraska because we work really closely with many agencies. We are a partner with Department of Health and Human Services in implementing Step Up to Quality. And so we work with folks on the subsidy side of DHHS. We also work with an organization called Nebraska Children and Families Foundation. They have a program called Communities for Kids, and encourage folks to get involved in Step Up to Quality. Our Nebraska Early Learning Connection Coordinators are part of our resource and referral, if you will, and we have 7 of those folks across our state. And then we also have the Nebraska Early Childhood Collaborative. So we often joke when we are in meetings and kind of doing strategic planning and talking with one another about how we can continue to support our family childcare providers, have to say, which meeting is this? Because it's all the same folks. You know, we're not a highly populated state, if you will. So we get to really network with a variety of agencies and, you know, just continue to support our family childcare providers. Again, I do think we struggle sometimes with helping family childcare know all that is available to them. And, you know, we do that in a variety of ways, you know, that's social media, that is our newsletters that go out, all of those kinds of things, and our early learning coordinators as well, communicating all those kinds of things. So we can always do better. We have a pretty large network of Spanish speaking providers that we're working really closely with also. And so one of the things that we're trying to really make sure that we're doing a better job of is having things either translated when we're providing training with a Spanish speaking trainer, which is the best way to do that. But in some cases, if that's not available, we're also working with an organization to have at least an interpreter during those trainings. So those are some of the things that we're concentrating on to really support our family childcare providers.
That sounds awesome. And yes, it is challenging, like you said, to let them know, like I mentioned with Janine, about everything that's available. But at the same time, I know I've heard from quality specialists I work with, the trick is to let them know everything that's available without overwhelming them. Like
Exactly.
it's that fine line there of like, there's all these things that can help you, but if it's too much, then they just freeze, almost like a deer in the headlights. Just too much. I can't take anymore. Overload.
Thank
All
you
right.
so much. Leave me alone.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you, Lori. Thank you. All right. And Dejanay said to this question, Maryland has really focused on increasing quality through professional development and technical assistance. Programs like Maryland Excels are helping, that's their QRIS, are helping providers set goals and assess coaching to meet higher quality standards. We also have regional child care resource centers like the Baltimore City Care Resource Center that offer trainings, consultations, and support for things like curriculum planning, developmental screenings, and even business development. There's also more emphasis lately on trauma-informed care and mental wellness, which is a huge step in the right direction. All right. Great answers to these questions. All right, and those of you who are on, don't worry if you have, again, we're going to open this up to Q&A when we're done answering these 3, and we have 1 more to go. So feel free to type them in the question box, and Sherry is going to be reading those out, and we'll get answers from our panelists, or if it's something related to GWIS, I will try to answer it for you. Which leads me to the last question. What benefits have you seen when providers use the GWIS curriculum? And Janine, I'm going to throw this to you.
Well, I think broadly, I think I've seen those that have used the GWIS curriculum. I've seen them, they have a look that I'm a professional, first of all. And then second, broadly, thinking of what it has done, it has been a time saver. So I just wanted say those two things. They're, you know, I've seen them grow as professionals. They look like they're a professional. And then it's also a time saver. So when I'm looking at the GWIS curriculum, I think it really helps them to, you know, takes a big load off of them when they're trying to do their lesson plannings and curriculum. And it's like a one-stop shop for them. They're able to do so much right then and there. They're able to do their assessments, to do their planning, and then do individualizations. So that's one of the things that I think has been very valuable, you know, with this. And they don't have to put too much thought into, oh my God, you know, I have to do my lesson plans. I have to make sure that they're crosswalked with the early learning standards. And, you know, I have to pull materials. And this kind of does everything for them. So it really takes a big load off. And at the same time, it saves time. What I also like about, you know, for the GWIS curriculum, I think it helps with training and supports, because a lot of our home-based childcare providers really need that support on using a framework. You know, since COVID, really a lot of them have, you know, have stepped up. Hey, I'm using the computer, right? I'm using
Exactly.
I'm using technology, right? Where they really had shied away from that before, because you know, Pennsylvania is both a rural and urban. We have a mixture of both. But they still, using that computer was something that was really foreign to them. And through COVID, you know, they've learned that this is what we have to do. And so I've heard from a lot of our providers where they're really happy where they can get the training and support that they need on using this system. How do I find this? Where do I go? What does the system do? So that's another thing that's really nice about the GWIS curriculum, is because it does provide that type of training and supports. And we require, as a state for Pennsylvania, we require that they do receive training on the curriculum, that they understand the curriculum that they're using, what it does, and how it benefits the children. So I like GWIS, you know, incorporates that training in there for them. So they're actually using the curriculum the intended way it's supposed to be used. And then finally,
that's very important with any curriculum.
It is, because you know, you don't want to buy a curriculum and then have it just because I'm supposed to buy a curriculum and then on the shelf, right?
Exactly.
They're very interactive with this, and they receive that support. And then on the other side, I like how they use, you know, this system incorporates the quality coach. So you know, the quality coach is supposed to help and provide supports with the curriculum. Like, you need help with lesson planning. Let's kind of look at this and see, how can we individualize this, and how can we do this? And GWIS provides training for the quality coach to say, here's the curriculum, here's what it does, here's what our system does, here's how it helps, you know, track observations and those types of things. And here's where it records their lesson planning and all that kind of stuff. So I like how it's kind of bringing everybody into the circle so that everybody's in that kind of communication loop.
Excellent. Thanks, Janine. And that is so important. And that's really what our goal was. This is not just, when we created GWIS, we wanted it to be all inclusive for everybody. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into the education of a child, and it involves the provider, it involves their specialist, their coach, but and it also involves the families, and that's another big part of what we do in the curriculum. So I'm so glad that you see that big picture we have for GWIS. All right, Lori, what do you have to say about this? Let's see, what benefits have you seen when providers use the GWIS curriculum? Because you're right, we've worked with Nebraska now for several years.
Yeah, so many benefits, but I thought I would give a little bit of history of why we even, you know, started doing this. So several years ago, pre-COVID, we did what we called we had some dollars, amazing, but we had some dollars, and we offered a curriculum grant. to any of our programs that were participating in Step Up to Quality. And the curriculum that they were kind of able to choose from, if you will, were curriculum that we had done crosswalks with to make sure that they, were in line with our early learning guidelines. And, through all of that, we were hearing from family childcare providers, yeah, this is great, but I have some limitations to being able to implement particular curriculum because it was very expensive. The training piece that Janine talked about. And so then we really thought about, from that feedback, how can we better support our family childcare providers? And we learned about GWIZ. And so what we did was, any of our programs that had achieved Step 2 and Step Up to Quality, we said, you know what, for your first year, we're going to support this, and we will, fund your first year with GWIZ. It was kind of a pilot, if you will. We thought, let's see how this works. And it was so popular, and folks were feeling so good about it. And as Janine said, the training was there and available, which is another piece in Step Up to Quality. We want providers to be able to implement a curriculum that they have training on and can kind of be as effective as possible. And so here we were then a year later hearing from our family childcare providers who had, in many cases by then, moved up in Step Up to Quality, and they were, steps 4 and steps 5, and they were doing amazing things. And we didn't want to then say, yeah, now you got to pay for it on your own. And so we decided to just continue. And so that's why we've been in this wonderful partnership for all of these years. And so we see family childcare providers feeling really good about the education that they're able to provide for the children in their care. And it's such a great investment. We talk about, kind of return. And we've seen great strides with quality improving all around, not just in the curriculum area, if you will, in Step Up to Quality, but because it is so comprehensive. Our family child care providers are staying involved in Step Up to Quality. They feel, I don't want to speak for them, but, our perception is that they are feeling really supported in this program. And so we just continue to offer it to all of our family child care providers, and, they're staying involved and they're loving it. So to kind of, give you bullet points in particular areas, I just think it improves quality all around. I really do. And we're hearing good things from parents as well in our surveys and those kinds of things. So we just, as I said, this was a pilot. We thought we'd try it. We would offer this kind of as a, we know this is a curriculum that is something that can be implemented and implemented well, as opposed to having a $2,500 curriculum sitting on the shelf, like Janine said. We were seeing those kinds of things happen. And so we feel very good about being able to do this and want to be able to continue to do it.
Thank you so much, Lori. And you know what? That makes us feel so good, because our goal all along, since we started GWIZ in 2012, was to do exactly what you're saying. It really is about more than just what are you doing today. It's more about helping that provider develop the confidence and the skills to provide the same, if not higher quality of care that they would get in a center or even in a public pre-K, because there's no reason they can't. They just needed the right tool. It's kind of like when you build something, right? You have to have the right tool, and that's what we looked at. This is they needed the right tool. So great. And I'll read out what Dezen had to say. She said, GWIZ is such a game changer. Yes?
No, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
I just want to say, one of the things that I did appreciate is, as GWIZ was going, and they had the tool, but then they were always continuing to take a look at it and develop it. And they were always making sure to get input from, you know, the home-based childcare providers, input from the coaches, because you've called our coaches in our state and had meetings with them. So really appreciate that you're continuing to redesign it based on the input of the provider and the quality coach. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's really important because things change. COVID changed a lot of things. And for instance, we audibled during COVID when we realized that family childcare was one of the only, in some cases, childcare open, and they had school age children. And so we quickly were like, okay, let's add some more school age activities. And you know, we listen. We really do try to listen because things are always changing, and we want this to be something that is useful and makes the provider's life easier, not harder. So thank you for sharing that. All right, back to Desanay. Her comment was, gee whiz is such a game changer for family childcare providers because it actually it's made for them. It's flexible, play-based, and developmentally appropriate, which makes it realistic for mixed age groups. Providers using it have told me that they feel more confident planning meaningful activities. It also helps them feel more legit when talking to families. They can explain the why behind what they're doing, not just what. And honestly, the kids are more engaged, which makes the whole day go smoother. So I want to thank all three of our panelists for answering all those questions that I put to them. I know they're not easy to answer because there's not just a one answer to any of them. There's multiple parts and pieces to it. I think maybe some people have been typing questions in the background. So Sherry, I'm going to ask you if there are some questions, and then we'll, Lori and Janine and I will try to answer them. Like I said, I'll field anything that's related to gee whiz, and Janine and Lori, you can field anything you feel like you might be able to answer. So Sherry, are there any questions out there?
Yeah, Beth, can you hear me?
I can.
Beth. Okay, just wanted to make sure. I'm having a little bit of trouble with the mute button. One of the very first questions, which I think you ladies did such a great job, I think you've already answered it. And the first two questions was curious to hear more about what you are doing to help with isolation and mental health for the FCC providers in both Nebraska and Pennsylvania. And I think you ladies did a nice job covering that in the first two questions, unless you have something else to add with that.
I think with the homegrown grant, we're really using our funds to really develop and build those comprehensive networks, those social networks, and doing it at both the local level so that the providers are getting that local network, that local social connection, as well as how to connect all those groups statewide. So that is really helpful, and the ELRCs have done a wonderful job with supporting that. And then again, really focusing on their well-being. We've done different things throughout the year. We've done the Healthy Minds app for them free of charge. They could go on and get on this app to help, find different activities for relaxation. We've worked with Ruler, which is out of the Yale University, and it's a social emotional curriculum, and it's for both the provider to recognize their social emotional well-being, and then how to role model that in the classroom. So we've been doing all these different types of, well-being activities, and we've actually included our home-based childcare provider community in mindfulness. So we've had the mindfulness program where they could sign up and learn. It's a 12-week course, and learn about how it helps with stress reduction. So we're really trying to focus different activities for different people to help with their well-being.
Excellent. Thanks, Janine. That all sounds like amazing things that they're doing in Pennsylvania. Lori, I know you're in a rural state. What about you?
We are. A couple of things. We work with the Center for Reflective Practice, which is an agency out of University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And again, I talked a little bit about how we partner and braid funding in our state. And so many of our agencies have kind of helped to fund reflective practice, which is a training. I don't know if you all know about reflective practice out of the Erickson Institute, but that's where this originated. And we have 5 now trainers across the state dedicated specifically to working with early childhood folks. The Center for Reflective Practice also works with our CASA workers, with social workers, with the court system folks. But we have 5 dedicated early childhood professionals that are trained in reflective practice. So that's something that we offer. There's also something called CHIME. I don't know if you're familiar with CHIME. This is out of, again, UNL, but it's the UNL Extension, Early Childhood Educators. And it's CHIME, but the acronym is Cultivating Healthy, Intentional, Mindful Educators. So similar to what Janine was talking about in terms of mindfulness, and they work with a coordinator, coach, mentor, whatever terminology you want to call this individual who works with the individual programs and the staff in that particular program. And those are both available to early childhood professionals in Nebraska. UNL Extension has educators across the whole state. So while we are rural, there's still support in each of those particular areas. And so those are a couple of the things that we're offering in terms of, healthy opportunities for those folks that are working in this industry and having this high stress that we all kind of experience. So a couple of things.
Thanks, Lori. And you know what? It's true. I can't even imagine how stressful their days are sometimes. And you're right. They're isolated. A lot of times they don't have someone that they're working with. And so they need those supports. It's so important for them and for the children too. In today's world, children have a lot of stress. So, all right. Thank you, Lori. All right, Sherry, do we have any more questions?
Yeah, actually have 2 more. First one, in Montana, we're facing struggles with in-home providers getting insurance. Do y'all have any thoughts on that? Janine, you're shaking your head yes.
We are
Janine?
experiencing that. We actually had our state, our advocacy groups in the state, and as well as Octal have done surveys on, insurance and, their thought, the home-based providers is, what insurance do they have? So they're really trying to work on this. And, recently we've even had some of our providers being dropped from their home insurance. So not just, have liability insurance for their business, but some of our group providers, which are large home-based childcare that have about 12, they're being dropped from their homeowners insurance. So this is something, we're, as a state, we're aware of, we're surveying, we're, have a list available of insurance companies that do help provide support, for insurance. And like I said, our advocacy groups, our ACs, are really working and supporting that. But it changes every day. Providers come, go. Yeah, so we're experiencing that as well.
Wow. Thanks for sharing, Janine. Lori, what about in Nebraska?
Well, yeah, I have no answers. I was just going to say, we feel your pain. We hear the very same thing. So, it crosses everywhere. It really does. First Five Nebraska has been, doing some work behind the scenes to try and make this our legislators need to know about it. They need to understand it because they're the ones who hold the purse strings. They're the ones who can fix it. We can't. And so the awareness is really important. And we do appreciate, First Five Nebraska, who works kind of behind the scenes on those kinds of things. So sharing with those agencies, I think, is really all we can do at this point to try and help them understand the pain and, you know, the struggles and the challenges with all of that, because they really are closest to being able to make sustainable change. But we hear it as well.
And that's unfortunate. That's just one more thing to worry about.
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
more thing to worry about. Oh my goodness. All right, Sherry, next question.
Next question is Ohio quality specialist here. We've had a lot of changes in our field, one of which is implementing approved curriculum and assessments. If they are in our QRIS, does GWIS plan on having a formal assessment at any point? Beth, I'm gonna let you grab
I'll
that.
handle that one. Yes, I'll handle that one. We are still waiting, by the way, to hear from Ohio on the additional information that we sent them regarding science or reading. So we're in a holding pattern there. We're very hopeful. In terms of a formal assessment, the reason that we did not from the get-go create our own formal assessment was because I went out and looked at the most commonly used formal assessments. And I went, we're covering all the same skills. So there is no real reason to reinvent the wheel when a provider might be very, very comfortable using, say, ages and stages or teaching strategies gold or whatever they're comfortable with. So when I looked at them, what we did was we created our piece that goes in the curriculum called Connecting the Dots. And Connecting the Dots is about a 16-page document that comes with every single unit we do, that shows by skill, and we have 40 skills, we call them learning indicators, which activities in that unit address that skill. So, for instance, let's say I need to evaluate a child in fine motor control. In the GWIS curriculum, that is PD5 is the skill code for that. If you go to the Connecting the Dots, you can see at a glance all the activities that we are going to do that month in that unit that address that skill, and a provider can then evaluate a child during that activity on that particular skill. So we have what we built in a lot of authentic assessment, meaning anecdotal notes, where there's a whole section in our users guide about that, but we provide something called an observe and reflect grid. That's a mouthful. In every unit that they can make as many copies as they want, which is basically them gathering anecdotal notes and then analyzing their anecdotal note and then planning based on those anecdotal notes. We put our emphasis really on what we call the authentic assessment, meaning the anecdotal notes, and less on the formal. And I understand that states require formal assessments. That's why when we looked at them with the lens of, okay, if we're covering all the same skills and we're doing it consistency and we provide them with a guide on where we're doing them, then they should be able to use any assessment they want, and it should work just fine. And we hear that it does, in fact, work just fine. I have a 5-star out in Colorado, and actually another one in Ohio that provides me with feedback all the time, and they're like, you know, it works great. So in a nutshell, we don't have any plans for that right now because it seems to be working just fine. It doesn't mean we won't ever in the future, because never say never, but for now that's the answer. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Jerry, any other question?
No, just some comments, especially about insurance. And one of the comments was that insurance companies are dropping because the business is in the home, which doesn't make sense. But, you know, that's a real problem. It seems like across the board with insurance. But I think we've covered all the questions that have come in. But thank you guys so much for sharing your time with us as panelists, because a lot of great information. Beth?
Yes, and if you have any last questions for those of you on the call that you want to share, now's the time. Any last questions? We are recording this, and I will be sending the link to the recording out to everybody, but it's the same link you used to join the webinar. So once it's up and it's posted on our website, and I'll let you know so that you can share it with others in your agencies. But I would like to ask Janine, well, first of all, I'd like to thank them for their time. We're trying to keep this to 45 minutes, and we're right now at 45 minutes, but I want to thank them so much for their time, thank them so much for their feedback. It means a lot to us at GWIS, because in the end, we're all trying to achieve the same goal, which is to help providers be better providers, more confident providers, which in the end will benefit everyone. But I would like them to share any last minute thoughts they have before we say goodbye. So Janine, any last minute thoughts you'd like to share?
I think actually I kind of said that earlier when I kind of interrupted you, but I, I just thank you for including us and to always be looking at your curriculum and ways that, you know, you could update it, change it, make it more user friendly for our home-based childcare providers.
All
And
right.
I know that means a lot to them.
Thank you so much, Janine, for your time. And Lori?
Well, I don't know that I have, you know, any big statement other than to say thank you. I appreciate this opportunity. You know, we always, you know, just appreciate and honor our family childcare providers and know how important they are in, you know, not only in Nebraska, but, you know, in the country. And, you know, sometimes I get a little bit choked up because I am so appreciative. I've done the work. I know how difficult it is. And thank you. It doesn't happen enough. And so we honor and appreciate our family child care providers. So thank you for joining. I know this was difficult in the middle of a day for those of you doing the work every day. So thank you so much for all you do every single day for your children and families.
Very
Thank
well
you.
said. Thank you. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Janine. Thanks to all of you that attended. Look for that link to join to watch the recording. And we will probably maybe plan to do another one of these in the fall after things settle down in the beginning of the school year. So
Yeah.
have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your week. And thanks for joining GWiz.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.